Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for another office hours training. I'm Crystal Gunn, your financial strategist and small business advisor. Part of my job as a strategist, be it on the business side or the personal side, is to help you create a financial relationship, a solid financial relationship, or a strong business base or foundation on which you can grow. And I also help you to have some aha moments, some self-discovery moments, and helping you to see what no longer serves you so that you can release it so that you can soar. All of that helps with the breakthroughs. That's where you start to shift. That's where the magic happens, be it in your personal finances or your overall business. It's Tuesday, so let's talk credit. So now I have given information on credit basics and how to start to clean up your reports, all sort of things. And I will come back and talk more about credit over and over again. But be sure to go back and watch those previous episodes. For the last few episodes, we've been talking about mistakes people make with credit cards specifically and what you should consider maybe doing differently, right? So go back and watch the last few weeks' credit episodes, and then I will discuss a few more this week and a few more next week. Well, one more this week, and then I'll just keep discussing them over different mistakes that people make over the next few weeks, right? So let's talk about exceeding credit card limits, right? So the limit is your credit card limit is how much they gave you, right? So $500 limit, $1,000 limit, $5,000 limit, $20,000 limit, whatever your credit limit is, right? And then there's your balance, and your balance is how much of that credit limit you've used. So, you charge something for $200. That's your balance today because it was a zero balance before, $200. Now, your utilization is how much of the limit you're actually using. So if your limit is $1,000 and your balance is $200, that's your utilization, and you can divide that to come up with that with a percentage. So 20% of that $1,000 limit is your balance. So your utilization is at 20%. You just have to do the math on whatever your limit and your utilization, your limit and your balance is. So if you take the balance divided by the limit, that will give you the percent of you, that will give you your utilization percentage. So what percentage of your limit are you using with that balance, right? So what happens specifically when you exceed the credit card limit? So your credit card limit is $1,000. Your balance is 1,001, right? So you have exceeded the credit card limit. So one of the things could happen is over the limit fees, right? Some credit card companies may charge an over limit fee if you exceed that credit limit. Now, not all cards do this due to regulations that require you to approve these fees before they're charged. Now, be sure though to read the fine print, because you may have given consent given consent automatically when you accepted the credit card and started to use it, or when your balance exceeded the limit. Like, read the fine print to see where those fees would be charged if you went over the limit, just so that you can make sure, for whatever reason, things happen, you're over that limit and you see that charge, you know why that charge is there and where you specifically agreed to that charge. So again, you might get charged some over limit fees. The second reason that you want to avoid exceeding your credit card limit is it increases your utilization rate. So just talked about that utilization rate. We know that 30% is like that sweet spot. I'm not a fan of you carrying balances. And if you're using your credit cards efficiently and effectively, the goal is not to carry a balance unless you had to go get a new furnace. You had to go get something major that happened in the house, or some major expense came up, and you say, well, I can't pay it all off in 1 month, so I'm going to pay it off in 3 to 5 months, right? Then you're carrying a balance. But other than that, you should not be carrying a balance. I understand everything that's going on in the world today. A lot of people are carrying balances. We got $1.8 trillion collectively in credit card debt. So things happen. But that utilization rate. So wanting to keep those balances below 30%, it's not always possible. The lower the utilization rate, the better when it comes to how it's impacting your score. So the higher the utilization, the more of a hit you're going to take on your credit score, right? And then when you exceed the limit, you're really taking another hit on your credit score. So you want to make sure that you're keeping the utilization rate as low as possible in order to not have those hits on your credit and not have that second hit if your balance goes over the limit. Credit score decrease. Since the amount owed accounts for approximately 30% of your credit score, exceeding the credit limit, again, can have a significant drop in your score. So when the higher the utilization, and definitely when your balance starts to exceed the credit limit, the creditors perceive you as a higher risk of default. So the higher the utilization rate, the more of a hit you're going to take on your score. Possibly can take a hit for the utilization and again for being over that balance limit. So the higher your utilization, the credit cards are going to come look at you as a perceived higher risk of default, right? And so other things can happen when they start to perceive you as a higher risk for default. Number 4, reduction of future credit availability. Creditors reviewing your credit history may view you exceeding your credit limit as a sign of poor financial management, right? And yep, we know everything's going on in the world. Cost of everything is much, much higher. There's these algorithms and there's these, things in the system. Typically, there's not a person sitting there reviewing everybody's credit report and credit payment history by hand. This is done through the system, right? And so they're not looking at what's happening in the world. They're not looking at what's happening in your personal situation. The system is looking at the numbers, right? And so when you're exceeding your credit limits or your credit cards are maxed out, to the system, it is a sign of poor financial management. This can lead to difficulties in obtaining future credit approvals, or higher interest rates, or lower limits on new credit lines, right? Or the ability to just obtain new credit cards and new credit lines altogether. So you want to be careful in that. There's also the potential for credit closure or credit limit decrease. So in some cases, if you exceed your credit limit, the credit card issuer may see you again as a higher risk and could either close your account or reduce the credit limit, right? So just because they close your account, though, doesn't mean that you don't have to pay the balance. You still have to pay the balance. Now the account is closed. You can't use that credit card for any new purchases or payments, right? And there will be a note added to your credit report that reads something like account closed by grantor, meaning the credit card company closed your account. You didn't request for that account to be closed. They will also, or could also, decrease your credit limit, which means that utilization is now higher than it was before, which results in another hit to your credit score. All right, so you really want to be careful there. Not to mention, the higher the balance, the more interest you're paying. Not interest rate, but you're paying interest on a higher balance. So the amount of interest that you're paying every single month is higher. So now you've bought these products, you've bought or paid for whatever you purchased on that credit card, And now you're continuing to pay interest on it. So you wind up paying for whatever the purchase was 2 and 3 times over because you're not paying those credit cards off in full. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. Everything costs so much more than it did. It's crazy the price differences that you see now versus 2 years ago. So I get it. People are using their credit cards for groceries, for gas for their car, for paying utility bills, right? They're using their credit cards to supplement basic living expenses. And it's evidenced by the 1.8 trillion in collective credit card debt across the nation. Now, we understand that all of that 1.8 trillion dollars is not because people are using it for basic living expenses, right? Because it was still, under a trillion over a year ago, right? So we recognize that all of those balances are not because of the cost of inflation right now, right? With 75% of people living paycheck to paycheck, most people can't pay their credit card debts off in full or even pay them down significantly. So be sure to monitor the balances and the usage of your cards. Only use them when you must instead of just buying more things. So, yeah, if you got to pay, this utility bill or if you have to pay for gas, but think twice before you just use it to buy some more stuff, right? Now more than ever, it's time for individuals to take a real hard look at their finances, determine what's important to them, and move accordingly. You have to do what you have to do, right? You got to do what you have to do. You have to go back and look at what's important to me and where do I need to use these credit cards? Where do I need to use cash? Am I going out just shopping and buying things? Make it up in your mind what's important to you. And again, move accordingly. So, what's my favorite thing today? It's the credit check. A lot of times you're in a situation on the credit card side which you don't know what to do. You may not even need credit repair, right? You just need some credit advice. That's what this does, personal side or business side. So or you may say, you know what, I have a decent score, but I don't really know why my score isn't getting better. Well, let's talk about it. Let's look at the report. It might be something in that hour conversation that I can give you some direction on in order to help you improve that situation. Or you need to do something and you don't know where to start. Usually with finances, when people look at their finances, they don't know where to start. That's the biggest thing. They don't know where to start. So I go and I try to help you figure out where it is you need to start doing whatever you need to do in order to fix the situation. Here today, we're talking specifically about credit, but it could be your business and it could be just the rest of your personal finances. Because remember, as I always say, when you're standing in the middle of the thing, you can't always figure out the solution, the strategy, or the way to get out of the middle of the thing because you're standing in the middle of it. So that's where that help comes in with that credit check um, for you to get to where you want to be. So, and all of this life we know is about elevation. It's a journey. It's the next steps, right? And so don't try to accomplish everything in one day. Don't try to fix it in one day. Whatever the situation is, you didn't get here today. You didn't get here in a week. It is here. It took you time to get here. Let's figure out the strategy how to get you to where you want to be. Figuring out the strategy also, part of that is releasing the things that no longer serve you, learning why you operate the way that you operate. Remember, your financial relationship was not defined by you. So part of this is redefining your personal financial relationship so that you can elevate, so that you can live the life that you desire and deserve, right? So this journey is a step-by-step piece, right? It's one step at a time. You can't stand at the bottom of the landing and jump to the next level of the landing. You got to take the steps. The beauty of taking the steps is all of the things that you learn. The beauty of taking the steps is you grow, you elevate, you heal. And then you look back and you've climbed the mountain, right? So, what are those next steps? Those next 3 things that you should be doing today after watching this. Pull your credit card statements. Pull out those credit card statements, right? Pull out those credit card statements and determine the balances. Look at what those balances are in relation to the limit, right? Are any of the balances close to or above the limit? Because it's impacting your score. Now, you may not even need a score right now, meaning you're not trying to go out and apply for new credit. So your credit score today isn't as important as it would be if you were going out trying to buy a house or a new car, right? However, you do want to make sure that you continue to pay on time. And then where you cannot be charged extra and take the extra hits, bringing those balances down, right? So pull your credit card statements, determine the balances versus the limit. Are any of the balances close to or above the limit? And then create a plan to get those balances down. Start with the cards that will take the least amount of money to do so, and then go from there. So for example, let's say you have this, and this is really geared where it's for everybody, but it's also really geared for those individuals who are like, you know what, I want to buy a house and I need my scores to go up, right? And so a lot of times people think, oh, I just need to pay all of these things off. Sometimes paying them down, using the money that you have to pay them down for the biggest impact works better than just paying one or two of them off, right? So create a plan to do so. Start with the cards again that take the least amount of money to do so. If it takes this card, if you got $300, it takes this card or these two cards $300 to get them down significantly because the limits are low anyway, versus this card with a very high limit. $300 is not going to do a whole lot for that. Instead of using it for that one card, use it on those three so that you can have bigger impact on those three, which will ultimately show in increasing your credit score. So start with the cards that will take the least amount of money to either pay the balances below the limit and or to continue to pay down before the end. But whatever you do, don't do the same thing you've been doing in previous years and don't expect something different. Don't be in the same place 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years from now. Level up. Get the strategy, create a strategy, figure out what you want in life and how you want to live the rest of your life from this day forward. Look at your finances and act and move accordingly. It's no time. There's no time left for people to just, try to wing this thing, try to figure it out themselves. There's no time left for continuing to live by a financial relationship that wasn't defined by you and does not work in your favor. It's time to do something different and change that, right? And I always say you have to face it, forgive it, and fix it. So you got to face it. You got to look at it. A lot of times people aren't even looking at what's happening with their finances, right? So you got to face it. You got to look. Then you got to forgive it because it happened yesterday. A lot of times it's the shame, the blame, the guilt that goes into whatever the financial situation is right now. Forgive yourself for it. Forgive it. And then let's walk down the road so that you can forget it, so that it's working in your favor. And through this process, understanding that the financial relationship was not defined by you, that you don't know all the time what questions to ask, you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes it's impossible for you to be able to fix it, also because you're standing in it. You're standing in the middle of it. So through this process, just remember to always, always give yourself some grace, right? Keep striving. Never give up on you. It's the best investment that you will ever make. So if this information has been helpful at all to you, please subscribe to the channel and be sure to turn notifications on so that you don't miss a training. Also, you want to make sure that you're sharing this information with somebody, right? You don't need a long drawn out explanation of why you're sharing it with them. Share it. So many people are going through so many things right now. How can you be a blessing to somebody else? You sharing this with them may be the very thing that they needed because they were on their last rope. They didn't know what else to do. This winds up being something that's really helpful for them. So share this information. Also, if you're in need of personal or business strategy, please let's talk about it. The consultation scheduling links are below in the description. Do not keep trying to figure things out for yourself, because a lot of times what I have noticed is people continue to try to figure things out themselves. They don't do the things that will have the greatest impact, or they do things that they think are going to have impact and they actually have none, or it winds up harming them in the long run. So schedule your consultation, links below. Always, always, always give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace. The same grace that you give others, give it to yourself. Give yourself some grace. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. Be sure to join me for the private online Q&A immediately following. The link is in the description. And if you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and turn notifications on so you never miss this opportunity. Thank you again, and I will see you on the other side.